Hello, good afternoon or good morning if you're in the United States, as I am. I'm Nicolas Veron. It's my delight to start this event on behalf of Bruegel. And let me immediately give the floor to Arne Snorre of the Hybrid Center of Excellence on hybrid threats.
Thank you, Nicola. So, hello, everybody, whenever you are, and I joined this event. I'm Arne Snorre. I'm representing European Center of Excellence for Countering Hybrid Threats, or shortly known as Hybrid COE. Thank you for our friends over in Brussels from Bruegel. Again for co-hosting event, so it's not the first one. So the audiences who want to find out more, of course, can look into Bruegel webpage or the Hybrid COE webpage and found our previous cooperation events from last year. So, and that's why we kind of have another one today on money laundering and discussing in terms of hybridity and pandemic. So of course that's why we are not going to discuss about what is hybrid and what the hybrid COE does and so on. So as I said, I mean, audiences who want to find out more can look up on the web, see our webpage, and if you are really interested, then contact us and ask further questions. So, but to concentrate on money laundering, so together with Bruegel, we started this discussion last year on hybrid threats in financial system. There's of course that vast and wide field of discussions and possible questions, and but today we will concentrate on this one particular issue on money laundering. And then kind of from our side, I can raise the kind of two questions for the audiences and our speakers as well. Of course, would touch on then how we see that. That's two possible questions here. So the first question: can money laundering be used as a weapon in the brackets? If he's thinking about the smaller markets, smaller economies, and the big players around, so can this be used as a weapon in deliberate forms that you push out the legal business because business want to operate in a clean markets, and if suddenly somebody says that there's the money laundering going on, smaller economies might lose some businesses, and that's of course gives possibility for possible influence from adversaries. And the second question in a kind of terms of pandemic and EU-wide, what we see today, similar to the vaccines, that kind of from one side there is clear rules and agreements how you distribute and buy the vaccines, but you still see that the nations want to compete. This competition is ongoing, and in similar terms, I would like to think that it will be regarding the economy, because everybody would like to restart or relaunch their economy first, and would look for money from different possible resources. And the question would be then if, again, some people would kind of, or some nations would start thinking that, oh, okay, we can kind of maybe lower the threshold, remove some blocks, or kind of forego some regulations to kind of receive more money in our economy and restart first. So that's kind of where the hybridity or hybrid influence possibly comes in again. So we have, Nicola would introduce the speakers. I am happy that we kind of have a different representation. We have from national administration's point of view, and we have the private sector representatives. So it would be interesting to see what they have to say. And then, of course, I hope that the audience would gives us some questions as well in the end. So thank you from my side.
Thanks, Arnis. And indeed, we're very happy about this partnership with the Hybrid Center of Excellence, which is based in Helsinki, where I think you are now. Probably it's not very warm outside. We're looking forward to an animated conversation. As usual at Bruegel, use a system called Slido for questions and answers. So you have to go to slide.do on the web and use the code money laundering in one word, can be capital letters, small cap, that doesn't matter. And that's where you can ask questions. I will be collecting the questions and moderating the session. We have, as Arnis mentioned, two speakers, respectively, from the public and private sector. First will be Ilse Znotina, who is head of the Financial Intelligence Unit of Latvia. And second, another Arnis Praudins, who is head of financial crime risk and compliance at Swedbank Latvia, who will thus be representing the private sector side of the landscape for us. So I look forward to the two speakers' presentations, to your questions, and to our conversation going forward. Ilse, over to you.
Thanks, Nicola, and thank you, Bruegel, for inviting me. I'm very happy to speak here, although I'm kind of nervous because I need to share my screen in order to show you my presentation. And it's always kind of like, I feel myself very old when I need to do that. I'm scared that I will be able to do that. So therefore, I will ask your assistance do you see my screen right now with the presentation? Okay, I hope that I will be able to do that in a way that we can all see in a way how I want to be seen. Let me check. So from beginning, is it okay right now? Do you see it? Good. So from my side, yes, indeed, at the moment I represent public sector. I'm heading the Financial Intelligence Unit of Latvia, but I'm doing that only for last almost 3 years. Before that, for 20 years, I was in the private sector and I was at 20th Law, and then I was a partner with Deloitte Legal. So from my point of view, I think that I can also share some knowledge of how private sector might feel in this very turbulent times. But of course, the topic of today is very, very important, and we all feel that there is a need for discussion on what kind of threats are caused by COVID-19 and the following activities that will follow, when we will survive this pandemics. So I will start with my presentation and overview how we in financial intelligence units see these hybrid threats and how COVID-19 is influencing us. So I think it's not anymore a question that during the pandemics, AML and anti-money laundering measures are still having the high priority, and because of what I will explain, how I will explain our views on potential threats here. However, the pandemics and our inability to work so close and so intensively as we have used to do that is really not doing any favor to Latvia or any other country and capability to prevent and combat money laundering. I think that there is very clear information at the disposal of FIU Latvia and also international organizations that indicate that there is a tendency for specific money laundering threats to arise due to COVID-19. Several of them are basically based on the fact that activity of this non-essential businesses is restricted and on-site client services are as well restricted. Therefore, online sales are increasing and every type of online activity is increasing. It is also very noticeable that support measures to reduce the negative impact on the economies, also including Latvia's economies, are implemented. For example, like European COVID, this COVID fund for COVID-19 remediation is implemented, and this also create new money laundering opportunities. And also it is noticeable that impact on the financial and social behavior due to the closure of businesses, unemployment, and restructuring of governmental resources is causing increase of money laundering risks. Cybercrime, something that we all were afraid of, that this will happen, and this is right now a year after a pandemic has basically started, and we started to feel its impact is obvious, and we see the suspicious transaction reports on everyday basis on cyber crimes. There is a rise in phishing emails and text messages that contain links to malicious websites, attachments to obtain personal payment information. Several very different social engineering measures has been also observed. We see that also there is a specific form of cyber frauds reported to us on impersonating public authorities who perform social aid to fraudulently obtain funds or personal information. And of course, there is an increase of business email compromise scams. Cyber criminals are exploiting weaknesses in business network security to gain access to customer contacts and transaction information. And this means that basically some of the measures that we were kind of like not exploiting so intensively during the last 2-3 years should be exploited again by financial intelligence units, by banks, by investigators. What is also very important that it is not only cyber crime, but some forms of fraud, where the expansion of different types of fraud that has never been seen before on such a level has increased. For example, it was already last March when pandemics was just like 2 or 3 weeks here, when we noticed that there are different types of fraud with medical equipment on the surface in Latvia. We see that there is a fraud related to economic relief measures, namely some tax frauds or some other types of frauds. We see that there is a fraud or embezzlement related to public procurement contracts. And one of the most important issues here is that because some of the goods had to be received on very short notice terms, some of the governments, including Latvia's government, basically released or allowed governmental institutions not to organize public procurement activities or different public procurement like measures to be implemented. And this caused an issues with the fraud in that field. There's also something that is not still so intensively happening, but we are awaiting that it can potentially happen here, and it relates to the intentional driving legal persons to insolvency. We see that this is a particular threat to the Latvian economy, as there were several years after 2018 financial crisis, when insolvency and abuse of insolvency system was very noticeable here in Latvia, and we were involved in fighting those who violated insolvency laws and abused the insolvency system. We unfortunately are afraid, if I may use that word, or at least we are prepared to see some very similar activities because of the COVID-19 situation. Corruption, this is again something that is quite noticeable, that corruption related to the ease of the public procurement procedures, which allow to ensure the delivery of highly demanded medical supply, is also something that where we receive suspicious transaction reports. And medical crime. Of course, the pandemic has led to a significant demand for medical equipment and supplies. And we see that there is a huge potential for overpricing, for delivery of low quality goods, and corruption risks related to COVID-19 vaccine procurements. I want to finalize my presentation with kind of like answering already Mr. Arne Šņora's question, and although we have not discussed that before, that he will ask this question and I will be nicely answering him and providing this answer. But I think that one of the greatest issues that is on the table of at least Financial Intelligence Unit of Latvia, but I would say it should be on the table of every public or governmental organization that somehow relates to the money laundering, combating of money laundering and other financial crimes, is how to balance the issue of attracting investments and potential attracting investment and protecting the financial system. What I mean by this is I can answer my question by the example that we had during the last summer, when we wanted to provide a green corridor for the Belarusian companies, which felt pressure from the political turmoil that happened in Belarus. And we wanted to provide for businesses opportunity to invest, Belarusian businesses opportunity to invest in Latvia, and to provide them with banking services, to provide them with ability to really to continue their operations, which were at some point suspended by Belarusian government. And there was a great pressure from society, government, and we wanted to really to be a preferred country for those businesses. And still, we needed to protect our financial system for potential threats and risks that those companies could pose to us due to the fact that they are coming from the country, from the systems that are not having the same level of compliance as we do. Here is the question, very important question, is that basically at this stage, when we want to really to fight financial crime and we want to be as compliant as possible, there could be some countries that would provide more competitive advantages by not being so compliant. Countries that will somehow not be so able to fight financial crime as we do, to see the threat posed by COVID-19 so willingly as we try to do, might be seen as more competitive compared to those who are fighting financial crime as we do. Mm-hmm. So therefore, as we are squeezed in 10-minute presentation timing, I will end with this and I will try to answer every question that you have. And I'm happy to provide the floor back to you, Nicola.
Thanks very much. I already have many questions, but first, Arne.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to express my opinion in this audience, and I will share my slides as well. So hopefully you can see presentation. Yeah, super. So, okay, yeah, my name is Arns Prodinch. I work for financial sector for some 15 years, and more than 10 years I have worked in the AML area. So, but in this occasion, I will very much express my personal opinion rather than the organizations that I represent or the kind of in general financial sector association of Latvia. And the other disclaimer is that I don't want to pretend that I know how the world is functioning, but I might have some thoughts and observations about it. So But yeah, so before going to questions asked, I think there are a couple of things that I would like to use to set the scene. And but basically, the story of the Latvia is that I think in the recent years we've done quite a lot in the anti-money laundering field, and not only for financial sector. This is not kind of only affected this financial sector, but situation in country as general. So fifth directive have been implemented, and FATF regulations. So this AML issue as such has been very much on top of the agenda. Plus, must say that there are a couple of important things mentioned in general regarding Latvia. So yeah, I think that is more and more general accepted principle that there is no tolerance to financial crime identified. And there are better risk management ensured by sustainable banking business models, and we are kind of had this policy of exiting cooperation with shell type of arrangement, meaning companies which are registered in one country having account another, and pretty much are used for accounting purposes, not doing any actual business. Therefore, we have seen significant drop in so-called non-resident customer deposit market share, meaning kind of what is the share of money coming from abroad, and what is the local one. Here I also must mention a couple of things of interaction with state authorities, especially with the FIU. The FIU has been actively using this public-private partnership model according to UK's GIMLET model. And here I personally can admit that, well, Ms. Znortiņa might not be the easiest discussion partner, but during the recent years, the FIU has become discussion partner definitely for the financial sector. So that is, if I'm comparing to other countries, this is a significant difference. And once again, kind of speciality of perhaps Latvia is that we are allowed to share the information about the relationships that we had exited in terms of customers among the banks, if you're talking about AML and CDF issues and things like that. But now more regarding the general observations. So, okay, money laundering, hybrid threats. So has COVID made it worse? The first thing that kind of pops up in the mind, and for me as a risk person, okay, when the pandemic will be over, then of course a lot of investments might take place, a lot of activities. But the unfortunate thing is that we yet don't know when it will be over. So it's in process. There is hope, but as a risk person, I cannot see kind of precise deadline for it. And of course, the longer the situation will last, the more significant impact it might have on the economy, and also I would say for the money laundering subject as such. So when it comes to investments, I guess it always have been the way that investments are very welcome to any economy. Well, maybe with a few exceptions in the world, but still, kind of that's the general principle, and it's needed. There is no difference, I guess, to this also this time during the COVID, and the investments might be needed even more. And typical the large projects, when they are kind of the investment decisions are made, then they are looking for co-funding, for co-borrowing from the local banks. So can there be any pressure in general? So maybe to accept for more shady money or not that clear money? I guess there might be. And I'm not talking about only Latvia. I think that this could be an issue. And typically, kind of when such things might happen, then they might find kind of guys looking to make such projects might find politicians that they are willing to raise their voice about the banks doing too much and kind of the limiting of economy growth due to different kind of control measures put in place. I have a gut feeling that this might be the case. However, this is not the only thing I think that we can say about. Yeah, definitely Definitely, there will be such kind of impact to the investments and investment environment. But I guess that the COVID, to some extent, COVID has been also a part of some interesting phenomena, like we are talking about a Wall Street bets, which is a, I would say, communication forum, and definitely COVID has caused people more to communicate in social media. So if we, just to recap, so there is kind of this forum where they agreed about investment strategy, and what they have decided is to bet against the large hedge funds. So in order to I wouldn't say manipulate the market, but still, and I think that the idea, again, going against the ones which are large, which are rich, could hear the kind of the ears that during these times when a lot of people are angry because of maybe losing job or are having some lockdown restrictions in place. So this still might be a case. And it's actually such kind of initiatives are, I think also adding additional hybrid threats, because, for instance, this week in such kind of forum, I was able also to spot a article like let's make bet short against a certain country, with of course outlined country title, but I'll not go in that details. And another, I would say, phenomenon where COVID has affected is also cryptocurrencies, because a lot of people have delayed expenses, so they are not traveling, they are not going to bars or restaurants, they have additional money. But then there is also those financial stimulus made by governments, and it's not too interesting to invest in some shares or bonds, because the return is quite insignificant when it comes to interest rates. And then on the other hand, again, in the media, there is hype about the cryptocurrencies, and then people decide to invest in such kind of solutions, and kind of due to the demand that the price might be growing, and then it's more and more kind of reflected in the media, and this I wouldn't say that's the only reason why the value is increasing, but could be one of them. And now switching over to the questions asked by Arnis. So can hybrid, can money laundering in hybrid threat world could be used as a weapon? I think definitely it could. It's an interesting question from perspective that I work in the financial sector for quite a long time, and some of the banks in the Nordic regions, maybe in the past, didn't have the most successful and efficient anti-money laundering controls in place, and that have been very much addressed during the recent years. But I think one of the troubles started when investigative journalists have been provided by anonymous wish dwellers with certain material, but that doesn't kind of change the fact that the controls were not sufficient. So definitely it can be, and in that sense, I think the countries which are relatively smaller economy might be affected more, because if you're looking from European Union perspective, there are a couple of decisions that where decisions should be made unanimously, meaning all the member states should make similar decision, and this also affects, okay, one thing is member kind of decisions about the membership in European Union, but also some security and foreign affairs issues. So there might be this issue, interesting issues, yeah. And the second question, okay, can the restrictions or controls be lifted in this environment? I guess in general, no. There still are anti-money laundering directives in place, at least in European Union. But then again, what we can also see right now and in the past, that the same thing written might be interpreted in different manners across the country. So the approach is not homogenous, if I can put it that way. And it could be that for some countries, that there might be wish to ease the pressure caused by, if I can call it that way, by such regulations, and maybe to ease the approach. Yeah. Okay, that's very much it from my side.
I'd like to take a step back and look at the last 2 years in Latvia. We chose to focus on Latvia, of course, because its banking sector had been, the venue of many events in the last few years, but also it's on the eastern border of the European Union, and it's in the obvious geographical and political and historic situation. So can you remind us of what you just alluded to, Arnish, which is the fact that the foreign deposits have gone down in Latvia. There has been a big change in the shape of the banking sector. Can you give us a few pointers in terms of the big numbers and also where most Latvian bankers, if not elsewhere, believe those deposits have gone?
Well, I guess Ilse might add on to kind of what I must say, but I think one of the issues, yeah, the increase of or decrease of the risk appetite was quite similar across the financial sector, and basically for many participants, it became too complicated to host such kind of non-resident customers, especially if they might not have the clearest origin of funds. When it comes to which countries or regions that money went to, that's, I would say, a $1 million question, but I guess, and I have a hunch that it might not have left Europe in general. It might not.
The European Union, right?
Yeah, European Union, but not maybe kind of. I wouldn't like only kind of to limit to European Union, but Europe region as such. But still, of course, most of the countries I have in mind are European Union. So yeah.
Ilse, any comment on that? I mean, how do you look back at the last few years of the Latvian banking sector, and do you see any lessons there for us going forward in terms of new forms of crime, all those things you've presented?
Yeah, I think that I can talk for hours answering this question, but I will try to be as concentrated and focused as possible. So indeed, it was last, I would say already 3 years, because one of the most important kind of like anniversary that we could celebrate last week was in relation to very famous, notoriously famous announcement by FinCEN, which was on 3/11 announcement on our third largest bank in Latvia, ABLV, saying that this is the bank which basically orchestrated professional money laundering, and that was the first thing that happened in 2018. And then the next one was Moneyval assessments, which placed us in a process of trying to get out of the potential to be grey-listed. I was leading the process of not to be grey-listed, and I was trying to really to call together all different stakeholders from public and private sector, including banks. And I will say that it was so obvious that let's say, as an example, in 2017, while I was still with Deloitte, I was leading the national risk assessment preparation, drafting for national risk assessment at that time, beginning of 2017. And right now, 2021, when we just finalized our third national risk assessment, it's completely different picture. I would say nobody is willing to get back into those shoes where we were in 2017 or 18. That was such a scandal, and that was such a wide eyes opening session. So right now, not only there was certain legislative activities, like, for example, forbidding cooperation with shell companies. Of course, not with all shell companies, but with those who are operating in, for example, offshore heavens or somewhere. Then there was reform of banking business model, because you know that in that time that there was a kind of like two different segments: those who concentrated on the servicing non-residents, or those who basically transferred monies from eastern part of or from eastern border from Latvia, being CIS countries, and then to the Western countries, and a lot of money went to.
So what remains of this offshore business? What is can you give us any numbers to compare the non-resident banking in say 2017 or 18 and what it is now?
Unfortunately, if you would ask me last year at the same time in February when FATF announced that we have implemented all money law recommendations and we should not be graylisted, at that time I knew that by heart, every single number. Right now, I will not be able to really to kind of like
give us an order of magnitude. We're not for precision, but can you give us a sense? You said it's a completely different world. Can you give us a sense with a few numbers, please?
Let's say, for example, in 2016, there were more than 300 millions of monies that went through the Latvian banking system. And there was a very few of those monies that basically somehow were integrated in the Latvian economy. It was in, out, and just in weeks or days. And as I said, this was primarily non-resident banks that were servicing such clients who were sending money in, out. And we see that as a very huge footprint was made by those banks which are right now in the liquidation phase. It is ABLV Bank and PNB Bank. And right now, when we are basically we are trying to analyze what is happening there in those banks from historical point of view, we already have frozen more than 600 millions in those two banks only. Imagine how much money is still somewhere out there in Western Europe, which needs to be analyzed the same way as we do. As concerns the non-resident deposits and the non-residents that are using Latvian financial system, the drop is significant. Maybe Arnis, maybe you can recall by heart what is.
So basically, I think in 2020, only a couple of % of money deposited in Latvian banks belong to persons not having Latvian citizenship or not living in Latvia. So before that, we were talking about almost half of the money. But that's the significant change, and that's also indicator that we are not that much attractive anymore because of the activities done in the recent years. And one additional thing to mention, I guess, even if there might be also internal push in the country to maybe switch kind of, not the sides, but maybe the calibrate risk appetite, I guess that there still will be limitations for also large investment projects with unclear funding, because most likely they will be looking for some cooperation partners locally. And in that sense, knowing the largest banks in the country, okay, I cannot, of course, put a hand of my heart for each and every bank, but the largest ones have the risk appetite, because they are banks which are not only represented in Latvia, they will not be too much interested in such kind of events. But then again, if somebody is able to fund large projects on their own completely, then yeah, but I guess this will be a challenge for many countries.
And it's a challenge, of course, also for the European Union, because there will be many funds, European funds used in the recovery and rebuild after COVID-19. Is it, Arnish, is it have you had any interaction with EU authorities on use of funds, also in the previous programs of, any funds for cohesion purposes? And is it your impression that the European Commission and the European Union agencies are equipped to deal with the need for control of that kind of risks?
I guess that was a question to other Arnis, right?
To you.
Or to me? Okay. That's a good question. I think on one hand we can see kind of this legislation initiatives still continue to strengthen kind of requirements put in AML directives and on other hand like maybe I already a bit touched upon, I don't feel that there is this homogeneous approach across the countries and unfortunately the same written thing might be interpreted in different manners. Whether many countries have reacted in recent years, I guess that has been an issue because, well, no, I don't think that there are too many additional countries willing to have trouble, etc. But definitely the approach might be too simple or easy in many of the countries, according to my opinion.
And of course, the other honest Nora is welcome to interject whenever you want, honest. Ilse, yeah, and especially on this issue of divergence in approach between different national authorities, if you could give us a flavor of how you, go through this challenge, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, but I just wanted to kind of like add on a bit on what Arnis was touching upon. This is something that I feel myself very so to say, was kind of like I'm a bit afraid of that your question is very to the point, because I think that unfortunately right now different European countries are on different stages of, for example, assessment by FATF or Moneyball, and the pressure made two different countries on implementing anti-money laundering measures, even including European directives, which we know that not all countries have even implemented the Force AML directive. So I would say there is very uneven pressure put on different European countries. Of course, I will not be very, I have been known for being kind of blunt and very open, saying that there should not be so much politics in the anti-money laundering, in the implementation of anti-money laundering measures, and both bigger and smaller countries should have had the same attitude if they are not following those rules that are for all of us. And therefore, I would say that those countries that are right now, for example, in the process of FATF or Moneyball assessment, most probably at the end of the day, when the COVID will be over, as Arnis was asking when, will be in much more advantageous position compared to those who had fourth round assessment, let's say, right, in 2014, or will have it in 3-4 years after this.
So the European Commission is expected to introduce, to publish a legislative proposal on anti-money laundering supervision this year, which has been debated at length in the last 2 years, and for which they consulted the public last year. Do you expect that proposal to make a difference? So what are your anticipations in that space, Ilse?
We are cooperating with the unit which is basically drafting those proposals very intensively, because we want to share the knowledge and experience that we have gained during the last 2-3 years, and we feel that there are so many initiatives where we can really like share and add value. On the other hand, my impression from being involved in anti-money laundering field for more than 10 years, and then right now in financial intelligence unit, is that no document will help us if we will not be able to cooperate. And this is my kind of like most of the most important slogan of everything that I do and FIU Latvia does. We need to cooperate, we need to share information, we need to finally start to coordinate our activities. No bureaucracy, no document will help us. And if we right now are not able to implement FIU net for whatever reason, if we are not able to really demolish those walls which we built between different agencies, different countries, if we are competing in sharing information, we will not fight the criminals, and we will not win this game.
Did I hear you? Did I hear you correctly that the FIU network is not working?
Yeah. I would say that I see a very big room for improvement of different agencies' works that are involved in implementation of efficient and effective AML system.
Arnish?
Yeah, if I can quickly add on, of course, so on a daily matters, I'm more kind of involved in issues that is happening in the Nordic region and Baltics, and might not have that perfect opinion regarding the other countries. But I think there is strong ambition for all the countries to fight financial crimes and money laundering, and more kind of there is this understanding that it's good to have laws, it's good to have directives, but they are not helping themselves entirely, kind of completely. Therefore, I see more and more also those initiatives of closer cooperation between financial sector and the FIUs. That I think is a trend.
So I should remind our audience that you can ask questions on Slido, sli.do. The code is money laundering. There are already a few questions there, and I'll come back to some of them, but please feel free to participate in the conversation. Arnish?
Yeah, just couple of points and observations from my side. So I think it's great discussion and interesting points of view. So even using the Latvian example, or I think we can still across Europe find a similar one. So and giving the pandemic, so the pressure is there on politicians and the decision makers. So because everybody wants their economies and countries be well, ensure that the society is in well-being and so on. So that's why, and it was already so pointed out. So where would be the line? So that the pressure is there. Where would be the line with whom you do the business? What kind of money you kind of allow in your economy? And so where's this line between that you ensure the needs of society, and then at the same time you look at the national security side of things, or that it's kind of you do not start business with adversaries or criminals or on so on. So that's kind of I know there's no clear answer to that, but clearly this discussion already shows that this is there, that the possible hybrid influence and hybrid threats come in, because the pressure is there on politician decision makers. So was mentioned by Arnis as well. I think that's the future, the cryptocurrencies as well. I mean, it would be additional layer of course. I think already the anti-money laundering I think mechanisms already have something in this area, but I think we will see more and more because even if the discussion goes on that kind of national countries want to move to do their business in a crypto kind of way in virtual currencies. So that would bring additional layer how we ensure how we control. So is it kind of what our resources are kind of flown or put into the system? And the last one, of course, well, the social media was mentioned as well. That's of course everybody's angry now. Everybody's using social media, and it's very easy, I think, to kind of reach this boiling point and tip the group of people thinking that this is money laundering going on, or it's some illicit activity, and again influence in an easy way people, and that would create the problem for national administrations again saying that no, that's not happening because people start living in these social bubbles, and well, I mean, we seen this on in terms of political life, of course, but I think it come down to the economics as well, that people live in certain bubbles, believe certain things, and then it would be really hard to convince them that the reality is completely different.
Can I quickly add on a couple of thoughts? So I think, yeah, the reason why I mentioned cryptocurrencies is that if we are looking at the market capitalization of those, then, you know, for the largest one, Bitcoin, it's almost $1 trillion. So how many smaller country economies should be counted together to have such kind of value? So the amount of value in such kind of format is huge. And the other thing is, yeah, regarding the social media, I guess more and more the importance of it will increase. But the funny factor about it is that it's hurting those who are caring about the reputation. Those who are saying we are not good and that's not bad, they don't feel offended by something bad said there. So that is another interesting phenomenon. But yeah, I guess we have other questions too.
I assume you're talking about political regimes and governments as well as individuals.
As well, exactly.
Yeah, that's a challenge that we're all facing. Ilse, what about cryptocurrencies? Well, how does an FIU deal with increased use of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies? What are your observations? What are your toolkits? Is there any international cooperation in that space? Can you update us a bit on whatever has emerged in the last few years in that area?
Yeah, I must admit that happily enough that our risk assessment, which we already finalized at the end of last year for the second time, we do such risk assessment for fintechs and virtual currencies every year already starting from 2019. Shows that there is not very many suspicious transaction reports in relation to cryptocurrencies. So from that perspective, Latvia is still kind of like on safe side, if I may say so, but I'm not blind in a way saying that it might be different. The question here in relation to FIU's ability to understand whether there is a huge amount of cryptocurrencies in one or another jurisdiction, I think very much relates to the knowledgeable obliged entity who is able to really trace that there is such cryptocurrency used in one or another transaction. What is maybe in our country, it's a bit different than compared, for example, Estonia or Belarus, which is a neighboring country. We have very few cryptocurrencies service providers here in Latvia. Why? Because we were not licensing them. Basically, we were Latvian banking sector, financial sector was quite kind of like openly in 2017 announcing that virtual currencies is something that they see as a high risk services, and they basically kind of like squeezed out most of the service providers there. It doesn't mean, because of their inherent nature, that there is no risk posed by cryptocurrencies. And what we are doing right now, Latvian FIU is very much involved in several public activities, so to say. And right now, this month, we dedicate whole months for the awareness raising for the public on cryptocurrencies and fintechs, just because we understand that this will definitely will become much more important issue here in Latvia. We want to raise not only the kind of like general public's ability to understand what kind of cryptocurrencies are there, that there are those cryptocurrencies that are easily traceable, and then there are some of them which are really like very much to the gray or black market related. And then we also
exactly. I mean, am I correct to say that there might be transactions there that neither you nor your partners in the infrastructure of money laundering control and enforcement can observe, right?
Yeah, I unfortunately, I'm afraid that it is still so. And unfortunately, there is a very much need for us FIUs, investigators, prosecutors, and judiciary to understand the phenomena better. On the other hand, just recently, 2 weeks ago, there was an arrest, the police activity, and the police arrested several individuals that were illegally providing cryptocurrencies by establishing ATMs of cryptocurrencies in our malls, shopping malls. So you see, there are very different kind of like angles of this issue. And my personal opinion is that it will become more and more important issue, and the ability of public sector to understand this is still kind of like there is a gap.
There's more happening in Latvian shopping malls than I had realized. Arnis, as a bank, does your bank has any cryptocurrency activity, or is that completely off limits at this point?
So just like for many large banks, according to our policy, we are not cooperating with exchange services providing such type of kind of activities. But then again, of course, such exchange services have accounts in other countries, also in Europe, and our customers can quite easily make kind of. It is possible for them, or they can.
Sorry, also in the European Union and the single market, right?
Yeah, so basically there are so many ways how today one can purchase the cryptocurrency. In the meantime, just like Mrs. Norton mentioned, that's a bit different financial world in general. So the whole idea of it was to go away from classical financial system where our banks, where our large fees, etc. So this is something happening on parallel. So what we are, of course, trying to do, so no cooperation with crypto exchanges and keeping an eye what might be the transactions with banks having such kind of exchanges with. But then again, it's not illegal in general. It might be even licensed in some of the countries. And then, of course, still the largest question is when it comes to our customers, what we know about their source of funds. And typically we know what we should. So, but yeah, it is presented, and I think I'm looking still kind of how the value is increasing. There is a hype about it, and it's getting larger and larger. So even those who might not consider anything before hearing those kind of significant figures, how the value is increasing, and they haven't seen kind of how it's dropping a couple of years ago. Yeah, so they might find this an interesting option.
So just
Arnis.
Just reinforces the point that, well, regulators will have to look into this. I mean, it's happening in a parallel thing, we can say, but it's still it would affect the EU and single market if it goes on and on. I mean, for sure we will have to establish. Of course, their initial idea was to move away from this financial system, but in the end, they would end up there because we will need the regulators, we will need the rules, and we will need all the protection mechanisms for the people dealing there. So.
And if I can still add on a couple of words, so I think what is for this system still an issue. It's not self-sufficient. You cannot buy bread in most of the countries by using cryptocurrency or water or whatever you need. So there still are those touch points where kind of you exchange between real fiat money, how it's called, and the virtual currency. So I guess those might be the points where actually that should be regulated or could be regulated.
I said thanks goodness. I guess that's controversial, but I think we're still far from the point where retail purchases with cryptocurrency could be made possible without any concerns. I'd like to come back to something that has been mentioned by Ilse before, which is the need for cooperation between the different agencies. And I guess that's true at the European level, different European level agencies, but even more so between different member states. We all agree that politics should stay out of it, but only political initiative, I guess, can foster more cooperation. It's not coming from the bottom up, from what you're saying. So, how do you think about that? Do you think that senior political leaders in the European Union, both in EU institutions and in the member states, need to have more awareness of the risks that we're seeing in that space, possibly emerging more with COVID-19? And what kind of dialogue do you have? Maybe that's a question to you, Ilse, with the political system in your country.
I think that you just kind of like nailed it down, because it's right now a very, very important topic for FIU and other stakeholders, just because we are right now in the very, very deep discussion with politicians on our AML kind of like way forward, whether to reform it and what kind of reforms do we still need to have here. Our AML law is right now, so to say, open, and therefore there are very kind of like intense discussions. And from the perspective how it was for the last 3 years, when I was indeed intensely discussing with different politicians on domestic level, and also on at some point on European or international level, what is there, I would say one thing, of course, for sure, we need to raise awareness also between politicians on AML matters. Unfortunately, and I will be again very blunt, the knowledge and their understanding is so unexcusably low, and the understanding of how to fight financial crime, with what measures and what is financial crime, and how it influences and impacts every member of society, is really like we just need to work on this. And therefore, I would say that it is not so much about the kind of like classical note tone from the top and then everything will happen. I would say there's a lot more needed from agencies itself, how to kind of like provide that information and that need, what we feel, all of us, we feel to the politicians. And I will kind of like provide an example how we do that as FIU. You know that FIU Latvia is also a member of Egmont Group of Financial Intelligence Units. And
that's a global body that brings together all the financial intelligence units around the world, and they extend views and practices and some information, but none of us outside the FIU system knows what happens there.
It's a very nice gathering of nice people in very exotic places, where we try to understand how to work even more effective. But we are representatives from 166 countries. And when I first traveled to such events, which was plenary, organized by Egmont Group, I was so impressed by the ability of such a large group of people to really cooperate intensively. At some point, I understood that this cooperation is some impediments are made by governments, by different political systems, and the cooperation could be more intensified. What we have done as FIU Latvia, basically, we took as one example, one bank, ABLV Bank. We analyzed the data set of that bank. We listed 25 most impacted countries by the operations to or from ABLV, meaning the monies which were sent to ABLV or received from ABLV Bank, informed those countries that we want to cooperate with those countries impacted. And we called together 25 countries around one table to analyze at operational and strategic level what has happened in that one financial institution and then all around that. It is something that has never been seen before, but it is very, very successful story of cooperation between different FIUs. We call it IFIT, or International Financial Intelligence Task Force. And right now, our example has been duplicated to the one African region, where it will be used for the fight with terrorism financing. This is something that I feel myself that we can bring to the politicians and say, hey, we need to have those borders to demolish. We need to cooperate more intensively because we know how to speak with one another, and we need to be as open as possible. And politicians should not create any other walls or impediments.
But let me tease you a bit. I mean, in the Egmont group, you have all kinds of countries, including countries that do engage in hybrid warfare and destabilization. So you're kind of describing us a happy family of competent technocrats who exchange a lot between each other. But how do you deal with the fact that these countries come from different places and are, as we speak, engaging in adversarial activities? How can there be trust there?
I think that we try to trust each other because, of course, from time to time there are some issues with potential of cooperation because of some political reasons. And I will not name them because from professional point of view, we really try to exchange information, although, as I said, not so effectively to my understanding as it could be there. However, the issue there is that money laundering phenomena or anti-money laundering phenomena and FIUs itself was always seen, or for the very many years was seen like a very secretive organizations who doesn't want to be known, who do work under the surface, so to say. And that was the reason why not prosecutors, nor investigators, nor maybe governments even understood what FIU is doing. And sometimes, to my understanding, it is also very comfortable for the FIUs itself. We are funded by governments, but we are not providing that particular support to the private sector or to other agencies that we can provide.
Arnis, Ilse painted what I found a very grim picture of the political class in Latvia, and it's even more depressing because Latvia has gone through this cycle, which we've talked about before, of a major major disruption in the banking sector following money laundering cases and allegations. So you would expect that if there is one country where the political class is aware of what's happening in that space, it should be Latvia. So I know you're constrained how much you can comment on this, but what's your perspective?
No, I think in that sense, most of the political parties are well aware what has happened or what shouldn't happen again. But then again, I guess Latvia in that sense most likely will not be unique, that there are some populists kind of trying to have their attention and maybe even share in the parliament. And unfortunately, from that perspective, again, COVID-19 times are very, very kind of benefiting them because they can use a lot of arguments that classical governments are not, and classical political powers are not working sufficiently, and now they are the ones who will be able to solve it. And if they will pick up also this issue that, well, now that's the way how the economy is being harassed, then it might be complex. So I don't think this is only for Latvia, or even actually I can be even a bit safer for Latvia, but I guess this might be issue in several countries.
Well, I was about to say there are countries in the European Union where the parties that you just called populist have entered governing coalitions or even are in charge of government. So then the question becomes, and again, I'm coming back to the same theme. How can you have bottom-up cooperation and trust in those circumstances? I mean, Ilse told us, I think very compellingly, that it's the system works better when agencies at the operational level cooperate with each other. But is that resilient?
That's a good question, but then again, I think for some of the issues, actually the power is in the to some extent decentralization, because FIUs and similar investigation services are, well, they are hopefully in most of the democratic countries not that dependent on who is the prime minister or you know, head of the government. Still, of course, that could affect, but most likely in the short term, such kind of hopefully phenomena of having populists in the government or even kind of on top of the government shouldn't affect this cooperation too significantly. But you know, that's the beauty of the world. Let's see how it will run.
I would like to believe you, but I don't. In terms of the European Union, I can think of a few countries where there is no independence of the FIU from political interference, and I struggle to find the road to trust in those circumstances. So then the question is, you know, the classic metaphor, which I think has a lot of truth, is that within the single market, the system is only as strong as the weakest link. So how do we overcome that fundamental problem?
Well, okay. There was a disclaimer that I was using. Most of the democratic countries, so you know, the countries probably you have in mind might not have all the indicators of democratic country, but you are absolutely true. It's always been a case that system is as strong as the weakest part, and this might be kind of additional vulnerability also for hybrid threat perspective, that, well, you had the most vulnerable one, and then the whole system might collapse. So, but then again, I think yeah, there is again kind of this power of cooperating FIUs and different investigation units across the European Union, and not only that manner, but then again there is this decentralization moment that hopefully in worst case one country will be affected, so the other ones still will have their controls in place. But of course that there is potential for that one bad thing to, yeah, okay, but bad region to become contagious also kind of across the borders. So yeah, that's the global problem.
We come back to epidemiological metaphors here. It's a global problem, but I think it's even more of a problem in the single market, because we have a basis of trust there, including for the freedom of transfers of money. We're getting close to the end of our session, so I'll give back the floor to Ilse, and then for conclusion to Arnis at the Hybrid COE.
Yeah, I just, Nicola, maybe I'm not kind of like for 100% sure which countries you mean by your indication, but I may assume that there are several which, to my understanding, also are kind of playing from time to time some game. Sometimes by not providing information to the requests of other countries, where definitely there is some kind of like competitive advantage of that country not providing answer to one who is requesting. Another thing is that there are some countries still in, okay, not anymore in Europe, but or in the European Union, which are not having so strong FIUs or other law enforcement agencies.
Sorry. If you say not anymore in the European Union, that can only be the UK. So can you clarify?
Should not be very much like guessing was not a hard work. Yeah, I would say I myself, I think, and Arnis or both Arnis will confirm this. FIU in Latvia was very much under-resourced when I came to this position, and this was, to my understanding, that was kind of like also expression of political will not to fight with financial crime. And this is something, this is very important. Autonomy and operational independence of different agencies that are fighting financial crime very much depends also on the financial and technical and intellectual resources provided to that agency. If the agency will be really under-resourced, you know, it's not a very hard work to say this is a weakest link or weakest chain in a whole system. So this is very much, it depends on the politicians to really want those investments, allocations of funding to the agencies. And therefore, I'm not so much blaming those professionals that are working in one or another agency, in one or another country, but this is something that goes to politicians, really to implement those duties in respect to the allocation of funding, and then growing stronger agencies that could fight and cooperate more effectively.
So I have to say I still have many questions, and there are many questions in this space that we won't have answered today. I, for one, find it normal. That's a big topic. So the discussion was very enlightening, at least certainly for me, in terms of really going to the concrete realities of this issue. But I'm not going to conclude because I'm passing it over to Arnis.
Thank you, Nicola. So yeah, just to sum up the last part of the discussion, and as well to answer your question, Nicola. So I think it's the question of education, and that's why we having this kind of events, and that's what Hybrid COE is doing as well. I mean, we need to educate the politicians about this issue, about the hybrid, about the money laundering, and what it could bring. Because of course, I mean, normal politician only thinks about the next election, who will vote for him, but we need to educate about those vulnerabilities here, so that people understand that there are certain issues, and if things go bad there, then everybody would suffer. And so it's kind of this areas you do your political business and views, but there are certain areas where you better kind of don't go or don't start it, because it could kind of end bad in terms of hybrid influence, hybrid threats, national security, and so on, economics, and the consequences might be big. And just to sum up, as you said, yeah, there are still, of course, lot of open questions, and we will not solve everything during one discussion, and gives us as well more avenues and ways to continue working and looking into those issues, because as clearly we see this is a possibilities, and this could be used as a hybrid tools to influence our societies, our way of life, and democracy in overall. So well, thank you for all the speakers as well, for your contributions and interesting point of views. Thank you for our friends from Bruegel for hosting this, and I hope kind of to see at least, or that the audience comes back to listen to any future events. So thank you from my side.
And thanks also to all of you. We're now adjourning this session, and many thanks to the audience for their participation as well.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.